you for the opportunity to be here with you this morning and to speak about such an important topic on how to respond to inspection observations uh, that may occur at the conclusion of an inspection. So hopefully, the information I'm going to share will be of value to you. Thank you to IPA for the invitation. And let's get started. Um, so and I'm gonna be on slide number 2, and now with the general overview, slide number 3. So I'll start with a quick oversight of the responsibility of complying with CGMPs and some questions that I took out of a Q&A guidance that we have published just to set the foundation and discussing the importance of timely responses to 483. I want to also start by explaining the difference between a warning letter and perhaps a 90-day notification letter for those who are not familiar with the different type of correspondence or a response letter. And I'll start with that in the overview. The warning letter and the 483 is the list of observations that an investigator presents to a firm at the conclusion of the inspection, describing the observations that he has or she has made during the course of the inspection. And these observations could be observations related to documentations or practices that they have observed. A warning letter, of course, everyone is familiar with a warning letter. Is where the agency describes the citations in great detail of what was concluded to be the most critical observations from the inspection in our review. And we have a warning letter closeout letter, which is the letter that we sent at once the reinspection has occurred and the warning letter has been cleared in terms of corrections being verified. A response letter is a letter that when we look at a facility and perhaps may have received a VAI classification, we still feel that there are some issues that we want to remind the firm that they should take note of and correct, and that they will be verified during the next inspection. That's pretty much a response letter. The 90-day letter is the letter where we explain to the firm the classification of that inspection. Okay, and we call it 90-day letter because it's a commitment that the agency has made that within 90 days of the issuance of a 43, that correspondence would be issued. The way it's set up, ORA, the Office of Regulatory Affairs, has 45 days to prepare a report and submit it to our office, and then we have pretty much 45 days to send out that letter. So just to set the tone of the different types of correspondence. So we can go to the next slide, slide number 4. The definition of CGMP explicitly includes management oversight of manufacturing to ensure quality. And this is the foundation under Section 501A2B. The term good manufacturing practice include the implementation of oversight and control over the manufacture of drugs to ensure quality, including managing the risk and establishing safety of raw material in the use during the manufacturing operation. And that is basically the expectation. So what does the 483 represent? And it represents a list of facts and not assumptions, and based on the agency's standards and regulatory expectation. It's also not a final decision of a regulatory action. This is really, really important. The field lists a number of observations on the FDA Form 483, and those observations with the evidence collected, along with your response, along with the history of the facility, along with additional information that the agency may have under the control, is reviewed, and a determination is made by our office, the Office of Manufacturing Quality in the Center for Drug. And that decision is the one that is communicated to you in that 90-day letter. So we look in great detail at your response, and that response by policy should be received within 15 days of the closeout of the inspection. There has been very few, I can think in 30 years or 33 years in the agency, perhaps maybe one or two exceptions up to the 15 days policy. These were extraordinary circumstances that the agency took into consideration, but by policy, we stick to the 15 days to ensure that consistency. Okay, the next slide, slide number 6, are firms required to respond to a 483 or warning letters? Well, in reality, there's really no legal requirement for a firm to respond to the observations. Most firms respond to them, and that hopefully is a good thing. But there's no legal requirement. The agency's current policy, as I mentioned, is to review the information that you submitted in your response within those 15 days. Any additional information, any additional updates, any additional supplemental information aside from those 15 days will be acknowledged, but there's no commitment by the agency to conduct a thorough review of that information received after the 15 days. And when I say no commitment to review, to conduct thorough review, is that the information that you submit beyond the 15 days will not be part of the evaluation to determine what type of regulatory action, if any, the agency will be taking. And the reason behind this is a logical one that hopefully you would understand. In the past, firms would submit many responses, and that delay by a year or 2 years our ability to make a decision on that facility. So as a result of that, the 15-day policy was implemented to ensure that the industry knew that within anything received within 15 days, the agency would commit to review. However, if there's an important decision, a significant decision that is made, like you're closing the facility, you're initiating a product recall, or you found contamination in other areas, for sure, the agency will not ignore that information. Next slide. I think we can skip this one, but in general, the 483 is the issue when deficiencies are observed during the course of an inspection, and is cited at the end of the inspection. It's really important to note that these observations are the opinion of the investigator. You should have the opportunity during the inspection to explain or provide your point of view to a deficiency that is going to be potentially cited on a 483. We are encouraging, and this is in our investigators operational manual, that the investigator should share any potential deficiency that he intends to list on the 483. He should be able to discuss it with you, not read it during the inspection, but at least have a discussion with you during the course of the inspection to give you the opportunity to provide clarification or additional documentation. It's really important that I say this, because if you feel that the 483 citation took you by surprise and was not discussed or mentioned, you had not heard of it, this is a point or a note that you may want to include in your response, that it could be due to the time constraint or whichever reason, that this observation was not discussed during the inspection, and that will be taken into consideration during the review. Okay. The purpose of the 483 and the observations, of course, is to evaluate the state of compliance of a facility. We look at the 483 observations as an indicator of how that facility is operating. But more importantly, given the topic, is what does the 483 response mean? Is your reaction to or the corrections that you are implemented as a result of those deficiencies? And agency, and I'll be talking now in the next few slides about some of the challenges and deficiencies that we know during our review. Is the 483 an all-inclusive list of possible deviations from the law and the regulation? And the obvious question is not. It is not an all-inclusive deficiency. So some firms tend to be confused and believe that because it was not cited on the 483, indeed, the firm is operating in a state of compliance that nothing else should be done. And this could be a little bit of deceiving to you because the agency is not supposed to serve as a firm's quality unit. We go there in 4 or 5 days, take a look at your facility, that system, add a number of documents, and we make some determination based on that limited time. But this should not be taken as that the agency is necessarily serving as your quality unit. And the next question, the next slide number 10. What are the implications and for the firm found in violation? Well, as you know, we issue warning letters. We have issued title letters, import alert in the territory of the United States or any of in the United States or any of its territory. We also have other legal proceedings, seizures, injunctions, prosecutions that the agency can take into consideration, and for those who are found in violation to the FDMC Act. So this is why it's really important that you understand the difference. The import alert is an administrative action that the agency takes against a firm and its product that are determined to appear to be not in compliance with CGMPs. And a warning letter is an advisory action. So the 483, as I mentioned, does not constitute, and I'm in the next slide number 11, and now let's go to slide number 12. The importance of responding to an FDA 483 is that it provides the firm the opportunity to submit clarification of the observations that were made. It also gives you the opportunity to explain what happened and provide documentation to support your position on the matter. It also serves as an opportunity to clarify any misunderstanding that may have occurred during the course of the inspection. Is also an opportunity to provide the corrections and the assessment plan and additional findings and your improvements. This is really important because firms, one of the challenges that we see is that sometimes firms limit their response to what was exactly stated on the 483. And we're going to talk about some of the most common deficiencies that we see in reviewing 483 responses and why these responses lead the agency to make a determination that the firm is not operating in a state of compliance. Because you get a 483, this does not mean that you automatically will be getting a warning letter or an importer or any regulatory action. We normally, if a firm receives a warning letter, we try to avoid issuing back-to-back warning letters, meaning we did an inspection in 2022, we issue a warning letter. If we go back and we find continuing violations, it is unlikely that we will issue another warning letter. You can get perhaps a regulatory meeting. You can also be subject to detention without physical examination of the products coming in, meaning an import alert. But you should not take lightly the fact that a second warning letter is not issued because the regulatory meeting also serves as prior notice, and the agency can make a determination to also add your firm/product and add the product into the import alert, and one of the import alerts that we may have. We have had instances where a firm did not correct the deficiencies and had made commitments in their responses 6 months after, when we requested an update, when we requested the information of the third-party commitment, when we requested additional data from the firm as to where they were in their corrections. 6 months or 7 months after, the firm had not implemented the corrections, and we proceeded to add that firm to import alert 6640. So it's really important that if you make commitments in your responses, that you really fulfill those commitments, because the agency can come down the road and verify the corrections or ask for additional questions, and if these have not implemented as committed, additional determinations can be made. And next slide, slide number 13. So now you received the Form 483. Now we're in the situation that deficiencies were cited by an investigator. You got your list of inspection observations. How do we respond? How do we respond? So now I'm going to start talking about the most common mistakes firms make in responding to a warning, to a 483. And I'm trying to hurry during this presentation, because this could be easily a 2-hour presentation without the Q&A. So some of the most common mistakes that firms make, and that we see when we get the inspection package and also in the firm's response, is that information is incomplete, or that a firm may reference work that will be done, but includes no protocols, no timelines, no plans of when that work is going to be conducted. And I'll give you a quick example. So let's say you were cited because your investigation into a stability OOS was found deficiency because the root cause determination was not supported by evidence. So that's the citation. Your investigation into the stability OS result was inadequate, in that you have no data to support the root cause. Okay, you got the deficiency. What do you do now? Number one, and I hope you can take notes, because this is not included in the slides. Number one, you may need to submit a field alert report if it's a stability sample of a product that was distributed. So issuing a field alert report. In your assessment, you may need to look at the root cause and the impact that situation may have on other products or other batches. So you have to expand that investigation. And of course, you have to reopen it and expand it to other products and other batches. So if you're confident that your product was in compliance, and maybe you got there was poor documentation into justifying the conclusion, you may have to retest your retained samples and have data to support and demonstrate that, yes, I am confident that I reached the right conclusion, that the quality of the product was not implicated. And here's the data. I have the following stability intervals were acceptable. So that is a good indication that the product was in compliance. And I have testings of additional testing of retained samples of that implicated lot and additional batches that could also be affected. That I did also an assessment of other batches, perhaps with the raw material or in the same equipment or in the same line. So these are just examples of things that we're looking for when we're evaluating the completeness of a 483 response. And we often just get a response saying, yes, we acknowledge the deficiency, we reopened the investigation, and we determined that the quality of the product is not impacted. Okay, did you do a risk assessment? Did you include it in your response? And did you include all the other points that I just made? And normally the answer is no. And this is why a firm may receive a regulatory meeting invite or may receive a warning letter stating your response to the 483 was found deficient or inadequate. Okay. Also, the lack of timeliness on the proposed projects related to that deficiency. An additional point is no information about the interim measures regarding those significant GMP deficiencies. So if there was a citation related to cleaning, and in and you understand and acknowledge that the deficiency is a valid observation, it was not cited in as a misunderstanding. Well, in your response, you want to include what are the interim measures to ensure that you have addressed the issue, even though you have not completed an entire full revalidation of your cleaning operations. Okay. No information or not expanding investigation to other batches. I mentioned that products and systems. So if the deficiency was raised regarding a method that was not suitable, was not validated, was found to be unprecise or unreliable, or whichever the citation may have been, well, the expectation will be that you also expand, and I'm on slide 14. Sorry, I didn't ask for it to switch. You need to also evaluate your other methods. How do you ensure that the other methods that you're also using are not also deficient? And that's often another area that responses are lacking in. Incomplete assessment of product that may be in the market, not including a risk assessment and so forth. So slide 15, deficiency or absence of risk assessment, that which I just mentioned. Another deficiency is a failure to conduct a comprehensive retrospective review of the systems that were affected by those OOSs, or a retrospective review of other OOSs that may also lack an appropriate root cause. So most firms conduct reopen the investigation and do the amendment, add the additional information, but do not conduct a retrospective review of other investigations that may also found deficient. If you're indicating that the root cause is that this employee was not trained, an analyst was lacking the appropriate training, if you're indicating that, well, you also have to question some of the other results that the same employee may have performed, because what it seems like the impression that we get is that you're only questioning the OOS result, but not the good results that he reported that could have also been misleading or incorrect results. So if you're going to question an analyst for his performance in not following a procedure, you also want to make sure that you question some of the good things that he reported that can also be misleading. We've had instances where the analyst was attributed the root cause of not being properly trained, but then we have other investigations where this same analyst was the most experienced analyst and was the one training all the other analysts. So it becomes a bit of a dichotomy in the sense of, okay, so here he didn't have the training, here is the person that was responsible for that failure, but then how do you then overcome the fact that he was the analyst that did the second testing on another OOS, or he was the one that performed the training of those folks? So you're going to have to look at all the information associated with that analyst. It also, this is more understood when we're dealing with aseptic operations and media fields and so forth. The other areas that we also find some challenges is you're referencing investigations or assessments that you perform, but these are not included in the in your 483 response. Okay. No explanation for not providing all the information during the inspection to the investigators and only submitting it after the 483. Okay, so if and you're in that situation where you decided not to share that information with the investigator, or the investigator did not have time to review it, as I mentioned at the beginning, you want to mention that, and mention, of course, why that information was not shared during the inspection or available. Next slide. Include your rationale for the supporting data that you're including, and not only your opinion. Okay, provide data, provide documents, provide photos, evidence, videos to support your disagreement if that's the case. Indicate when additional information became available and why it was not presented during the inspection team, as I mentioned. And as a matter of, I'm going to take 1 minute to also share with you that in the upcoming month, we are going to be releasing a portal that is already available, where firms are going to be able to submit their written responses and upload videos and upload large quantities of documents through that portal, because the responding through email is not the most efficient way. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that down the road, but we are in right now in a pilot phase of using that portal so companies can submit responses to it. So just stay tuned, because that's coming down the line. Next slide. Transparency is essential. It's not an option. We need to see the accurate, reliable, complete, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Do not overreact. Do not threaten the agency that you're going to be shutting down or recalling products and so forth. Use the opportunity for an open dialogue with the agency. Okay. Extra testing is what it should say there, not texting. Don't text too much. Okay, so yes, extra testing, short-term and long-term remediation, third-party certifications, and others could be some of the activities that you engage in. Early notification is important. There's a mandatory reporting of discontinuous or meaningful disruption of the supply. Okay, voluntary details of supply interruptions and proposals for mitigation, and how you're going to prevent, or how we're going to prevent shortages is a requirement. So as soon as you think that the observations cited and your response or your decisions may affect the supply, please get in contact immediately with the Office of Drug Shortage, so you can work with them on submitting your drug shortage plan. So before you make any decision to shut down or recall products, contact the drug shortage office. And now I'm on slide 19 for the person in the room. Okay, and propose the ways that you will be addressing the issues that were cited, while you also maintain the supply. The next slide 20, drug shortages are a significant public health threat. And again, we cannot emphasize that enough. We encourage manufacturers to prioritize high quality manufacturing systems and products, and ensure the supply of these drug products. So we have a few examples now of equipment or observations that the agency has made. So debris located on equipment above the filling lines. You have others of conditions of a facility. You have discoloration of HEPA filter, and you can start changing the slides to slides 21 to 22, and then you could jump to slide 23. Discoloration of the top of the HEPA filter. Slide 24, stainless steel sieve worn out or defective. Slide 25, compression machines in very in conditions that are not suitable. So you see, these are part of the observation the investigators cited. I have on slide 26 a number of additional observations OOS's potential data integrity, process performance, control issues, maintenance issues, improvised process changes that are not documented, foreign particles, and poor designs, equipment not reliable, and so forth. Slide 27, conclusions not supported, no CAPA, no field report, not verifying or addressing previous similar failures. Again, these are some of the deficiencies we find. So a firm receives some of these citations. How do you respond? And I know I only have basically 2 minutes left. How do you respond to these observations? Your response needs to be comprehensive. And now I'm in slide 29. Address the extent of the problem. Justify your scope of that retrospective review. Indicate the batches potentially impacted and your plan to expand, or what you have done to reassess other batches. Include your risk assessment, your criticality, your severity, likelihood of recurrence, and so forth. Include if there's any discussion needed regarding market action. Include the aggravating factors. These are the additional information that you have found, or even your third party. So you brought a third party, you found additional information. The agency needs to be made aware of this additional information. And you can also include your mitigating factors. Include a comprehensive remediation plan. We also want to know what happened, when, who was involved, why did these things happen, what was the deficiencies in place or lacking, what was lacking that led to these deficiencies. And we have another presentation that is not the theme here, but if you found that a procedure was deficient, a procedure in itself, not following a procedure, may not be a justification to just invalidate an OOS result. You have to explain how the not following that procedure contributed to the failure. So a person decided not, or did not follow a procedure, but if not following that procedure did not have an impact on the quality attributes of that drug product, you may be cited for invalidating a result that should not have been invalidated because it was a valid OOS result. So these are some of the common deficiencies that we know during our review that we hope that today they can help you understand how we evaluate a case and what are we looking for in our evaluation. If you look at slide 31 and 32, again, incomplete information, lacking information to support your conclusion, failing to address repeated issues that may have been cited at your facility or other facilities within the network. Okay. Also, assessment of commitments that you made in the past and new commitments, and how do those two correlate. And yes, that we have a mechanism in our office that we evaluate all your commitments, and we evaluate the time that the time frames you are establishing, and that's into a database that we have. And we revisit and see if those commitments are fulfilled, if we get any additional information where you indicate that you have completed such commitment. So we are monitoring and evaluating the commitments that you're putting on a 43 response or on a warning letter. So I mentioned this because firms often believe that they can commit and make a lot of promise, and that the agency, well, they'll follow up to that in the next inspection, and that's okay. This is what the agency wants to hear. No, we are looking very carefully and thoroughly at the commitments you're making, the timelines of completion, and in instances, we are contacting firms to see if those commitments were completed, fulfilled, and requesting update reports if these were not submitted. So being mindful of the time, I think I can stop here, although I have 2 additional slides that if the organizers allow me, I can go through them and then conclude.
Yes, Dr. Rosa, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So on slide 32, we also look at the failure to address global corrective action plan. So if a deficiency was found in your facility, we also look at the deficiencies found in other facilities, and see what corrections and commitments you made in that facility, and why these were not transferred or applied to the facility that we are inspecting. So describe in detail the global and global and site specific corrections, and include the evidence. If you tested your retained samples, don't only say that you tested, include the results. Okay, include your approach for testing 1 lot, 2 lots, five batches. Okay, indicate if this was an experimental batch, if this was a validation batch, if it was released to the market or not, if it was released to other markets. So then slide 33. I think I can stop here, because the other slides that you will get, there's only like 4 or 5 slides left, are more examples of warning letters that we have issued, and general citations of what a comprehensive review may mean. So these are some of just the thoughts that we have on the way we review cases. So as a closing to the presentation, a response to the inspection deficiency or to a warning that should be comprehensive and include an assessment of the current state of compliance and the extent of the problem. A response should include details of the roles and responsibilities of the third party. CAPA should be completed or plan to complete it with specific timelines. It should include how you're going to measure the effectiveness of the CAPAs and how you're going to be monitoring the effectiveness of the CAPAs, and how do you demonstrate sustainability. To ensure quality, well-designed, and this is my last slide, well-designed and appropriately implemented processes, systems, and procedures, along with commitments of senior and executive officers, providing the necessary resource and management oversight are essential. I need to say that again. To ensure quality, well-designed, and appropriately implemented processes, systems, and procedures, along with this is the last slide, number 40. And you can just look at it because I even wrote it in capital letters. Commitment of senior and executive officers, providing the necessary resources and management oversight are essential. Regulators are interested in sustainable and effective quality systems that will assure patients receive safe and effective medicine. And I will acknowledge Mr. Rick Freeman, Rebecca Parrilla, Brooke Higgins, and others who helped and in the preparation of this presentation. So I'll stop here to address any questions anyone may have. And again, in 35 minutes, it's a little bit challenging to present so much information of things that we see, but hopefully this gives you a better picture of how and why we sometimes proceed with the actions that we do.
Carmelo, Rosa, it's always a pleasure to hear you. And
Good to see you again,
every slide is absolutely, a bundle of information for each one of us. And it's going to be like a ready reckoner for us when every inspection is completed and 483 responses are given. So there are a couple of questions. I've tried to bucket them. One question that came up from Mr. Sanjay was they had an inspection a couple of months back. And on the website of FDA, the site was classified as VAI, but they haven't received any letters so far. So what happens is, as a manufacturer, they need to provide this information to their customers, and the EIR, which is normal letter from the FDA, is something that the opening letter or the first page of the letter is shared with the customers. So
Yeah.
when do they expect these kind of thing, or is there any plan, or what is the timeline for that? So on one hand, the status is changed to a VAI, which is a good sign, but they would need evidence of that closeout. So how does this process go?
Yeah, so it's an important question that often is asked. So if the inspection was a PAI, if it was a pre-approval inspection,
No, it was a GMP inspection. It was
okay,
a GMP.
GMP. Okay, so if you received the if you saw that the inspection, the current inspection was VAI in the database, feel free to write to our office. You can write to me or to Francis and Atura Guava, and just CC me when you, and I will see where that inspection report is, and we'll try to work out to make sure that you get that inspection report. It was VAI and it was a GMP surveillance inspection. If it was in previously OAI, so you know the process. If the inspection was previously OAI, my office or my staff generates a forecast and instruct the inspecting team, to go and do that inspection. So that report would definitely come to our office because it was triggered by a forecast assignment. So this is why I'm comfortable in saying, if you have not received an EIR, and you saw that the result of the inspection was uploaded in the database, feel free to write to us and we will try to address that quickly.
Thank you, Doctor. The another question that comes up is, see, in the recent times or even earlier also, there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Especially, there are a couple of sites which are not doing well, so they close down. And for commercial reasons, there have been taking over these sites by some other companies. Now, when these companies are taken over, very difficult to get the history of the usage of the equipment at the site. And if the new site or the new management really wants to use that equipment, what kind of a documentation would the FDA expect when the plant restarts?
So you're saying, let's say a facility A was acquired by a company B, and they want to either reuse the equipment or systems that were in place. What they should do, is this acceptable? Is that the question?
Yeah. So they don't have the history of usage of the equipment, either do they have any information about, and it's very difficult to get it. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah, they may not have the IQ, OQ, they may not have the PV, they may not have, well, unfortunately, in that case, that for the firm, they might need to reassess the suitability of that equipment, because now they are the responsible parties for the operations of that equipment. So they would have to develop the data, come up with a plan as to how they will demonstrate that that equipment is suitable for its intended use. So they would have to, the expectation would be that they have to then do an assessment of that equipment and not assume that the equipment is operating as intended. So that they may have to go back to the drawing board and look at all the equipment that they intend to use from the previous owner and reassess it. Okay, now there are instances, it's easy when we're dealing with manufacturing equipment, blenders, mixers, and all that, but it becomes more challenging when you're dealing with electronic systems, when you're looking at data that you may not have of the origin of submission batches. Well, in that case, what I would encourage you is to come up with a plan and present it to the agency of what you have, and the agency on a case-by-case can tell you what is acceptable or not. Okay, so that at least for a start. If you don't have the validation package, or you don't have the source data, because now is under new ownership, the agency, and you purchase, let's say, the application, the Office of Product Quality would work to you in determining what data do you have, and what data will you need to have that application and to use that application. Hopefully, when you're engaging with the new owner, that information available to support the applications, of course, is made available. But if that were not the case, if you are buying or acquiring an application or product, you may have to start from scratch on developing some of the data that does not exist and submitting it or having it available at least. Because if the application is approved and you have acquired it, you may just need to develop the underlying foundational application data to support the batches that you will be manufacturing and releasing to the market.
Yep. Thank you so much. This is one question which has come up, that in the recent times, FDA has inspected excipient manufacturer, and the audit did not go well. It was a warning letter. So how do we register an excipient manufacturer with the FDA, and does it bind the type 4 excipient US DMF or any separate procedure like facility registration in case of API or DP or the drug product? So what would be the suggestion for the excipient industry? Because this is the industry, or this is the type of raw material that is used so very extensively in the formulation, and very little information is given back to us based on the vendor qualification. And this was quite a unique case of an excipient manufacturer getting a warning letter from US FDA.
Right, and I would almost need like a whole presentation on excipients alone. But let me, in a nutshell, in 1 minute, tell you the basis for that case. Yes, we issue in December of last year, a warning letter to an excipient manufacturer that was producing Avicel. And it's the case that comes to mind. I believe that's the one you're referring to. By definition, an excipient is a drug, okay? If you look at 501A2B, there's a description there of a drug maybe, is adulterated if it was not manufactured according to CGMPs. When we look at the definition of a drug under the FD&C Act, and it's not a lecture, is you go to the definitions under the Act, under 201G, it includes components of a drug as part of that, meeting that definition. We do not apply the finished drug manufacturing regulations to excipient. We're applying the FD&C Act. So that's why that warning letter, you can see that warning letter, it does not say you violated such and such regulation. We don't reference 21 CFR at all. We are saying that you did not make these products in accordance to good manufacturing practices. So what does that mean? Well, there are some guidance documents out there. But there's also some expectation that if something fails, you do an investigation. That's a fundamental GMP expectation, and you don't need that to be in a regulation. You don't need that to be in anything. If something fails, you need to investigate and evaluate what happened. If there's a microbial contamination, you need to do an assessment of the impact on batches. If you found products that were distributed that were adulterated within that definition, you need to notify your customer, do an assessment of the impact, risk assessment, and so forth. So what can we expect? The agency, of course, does not have the resources to inspect every excipient. It would be manufactured. It would be almost impossible. So we're putting more that responsibility where it belongs, on the manufacturer of the drug products or the APIs, to do a comprehensive assessment of the suppliers, of their suppliers. See, in the past, supplier qualification was done with a checklist. I'm in my office, send me that material, and here's the checklist that everything was done. That is not necessarily an acceptable way of qualifying a supplier. Okay, there has to be an understanding of the systems that they have in place and the processes that they have in place to ensure that that excipient that you're receiving is suitable. We have data, we have information to demonstrate the impact that some of these excipients are having on the quality attributes of finished drug products. And this is why you will be seeing in the near future the agency also looking at more closely at some of these excipients, but also making some changes perhaps in regulations or in laws and policies or procedures ensure that the user of those excipients are responsible for ensuring that those excipients are suitable and that they meet appropriate quality attributes for their intended use. So hopefully that answers the question.
you're
But on
right.
this, we have a 2-hour presentation on that alone.
Yeah, you're right. See, at this moment of time, the user of the excipient takes the responsibility of a lot of things in terms of its quality, in terms of the analysis, and the critical information is missing. So we're not getting it from the excipient manufacturers, and it's the onus on the user to get this data for the benefit of its usage, and when the questions are asked by FDA. There's one question which is quite interesting. I guess this is for if a site is classified as a OAI, and I guess this is for the API, but there's no warning letter or import alert. Can a formulation company use it for registering new generic products for their registration?
Yeah, the fact that a firm is OAI does not exclude a firm from using the product. It doesn't. It means that site is not operating in state of compliance, but you have to do your assessment into the material that you're receiving from that facility. Okay, so it still remains on the responsibility of the user of the material to demonstrate that the product that they're receiving is suitable for their process. So if you have an API that is OAI and the firm is not under import alert, there's nothing that prevents that.
Can the facility be used for new registrations?
The facility is what?
The facility was categorized as OAI, but it is not categorized as under import alert or warning letter. Can the formulation company use this facility for registering new generic products?
Yes, and you will work closely. The short answer is yes. However, you will have to work closely with the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality on that submission. The application will not get approved until that facility overcomes the OAI status.
Okay.
So that facility will not, that application is not going to get approved if that facility is under OAI status. That's normally, let me not use absolute because but that normally the application would not be approved. Okay.
Yeah. On your slide number 7,
that API facility needs to resolve those issues first. And another thing that the holder or the end user need to do is to ensure that the material that they receive before the OAI status or even during, because they're not under import alert, is suitable. That they did their testing, that they have the data to support that material is not unsuitable for use, because the agency found that the API had impurities and had issues with the product that you're using, then you have a problem for yourself, because now you're using a product that impurities are out of spec, and that you're going to have to show that you overcame and that was addressed, which is going to be difficult without revisions to the API manufacturing operations, DMF amendments, and so forth.
Yeah. On your slide number 17, Dr. Carmelo, you mentioned about extra texting. Can you elaborate on that? What is this extra texting you mentioned?
Let me see.
Slide number 17, if I'm not mistaken, at the bottom. You said.
That's a typo. Extra testing.
Yes.
That's why I said that was a typo. It's extra testing.
Okay. So I thought that is it about the response that you're talking about, or
okay? That's why I said I don't no additional texting. We don't need the texting. We just extra testing. That's the typo.
Okay. So I thought you were talking about the response.
I apologize.
And the volume of the text that goes in the response.
Sorry for that
No,
confusion.
no problem. I mean, we are looking at each and every word that you mentioned, and that's something that,
Yeah.
after this presentation is shared, people will keep on asking you the same question. So this is a question by somebody saying that, like your FDA guidance on OS, are you
Mhm.
also trying to publish a guidance on microbiology OS?
On microbe ORS,
Yes.
at this time that is not under the guidances that we have, and the reason behind that is because when you have a micro or out of specification result, it's going to be what we have in our OS guidance is that in the area of microbiological failures or out of specification, it's very difficult to assume that a retesting is going to overcome that failure, because microbial contamination is known to not be uniform. So to engage in a hypothesis testing and retesting of the material would be perhaps misleading into your determination that the product is suitable, because you can have a contamination throughout the facility and may not have the right information. For example, you have a sterility failure, media fill failure. In order to overcome those, you really have to have specific and clear, tangible evidence, undisputable, if we can just use some of those adjectives, to demonstrate that the sample was a bad sample or that a procedure was not followed. So to overcome that. So, for a guidance just for microbial testing, it may not be a bad idea, but right now is not under consideration, because the biggest challenges that we have seen historically has been more with retesting on the chemical side, hypothesis, and how do you invalidate a result and so forth. But perhaps I'm going to be in India in March presenting. Perhaps I can include that as a topic of discussion. We can just have a session on microbial or out of limit results or OSs. So we can talk about that further. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we'll have more questions. Maybe we can send it to you. But thanks, Dr. Carmelo, for all this insight. It's always a pleasure, hearing you. And this presentation is going to be like a ready reckoner for all of us. So thanks. Over to you, Nilanjan.